the marketing webinars that we're going to be running here at Tevent. This first event is called Using Webinars to Convert Your B2B Leads into Revenue. My name is Tom Parker. I'm the Chief Growth Officer here at Tevent, and I'll be your host for today. If you're watching this event today, then you are probably in one of these two camps. So you're either already running revenue generation events, virtual events, or you might be considering running revenue generation events. If you're already running them, then you're probably here because you're curious about how you can optimize the process that you're already running, and we've got some great tips for that. If you're not already running these types of events, then you're probably here to learn about how to do that. Whether this channel is the right channel for you, can it really help you generate leads and revenue? So we'll be able to answer both of these questions during the session today. So if you're asking these questions, you're in the right place. Quick note on the agenda for today. So this will be around about a 50-minute webinar, might run over by a few minutes. The first section is going to be about 15 to 20 minutes, and that's going to be a presentation delivered by myself, all about the topic of generating leads and generating revenue using webinars and virtual events. Then we're going to move on to a panel discussion with myself and 3 other panelists who are experts in this space, and I'll introduce them in just a second. Third, we're going to move on to questions from the audience. So as we go through the event today, please make sure that you're asking questions. If you're in the Tevent platform, that can be found on the right-hand side of your screen on the tab called Questions. If you're watching on socials, then you'll need to come over to Tevent to ask questions. If you do post it on the feed on Facebook or LinkedIn, we might not see it. So please do come over to the Tevent platform so that you can ask your questions and make sure they get answered. And also in the last 5 minutes, we're going to be giving away some prizes. So please make sure that you stay to the end to make sure that you get your chance to win those prizes as well. The speakers for the event today. So we're going to have a guest panel of 3 additional speakers. The first of those is Justin Stevenson, who is from Sandler, London, and is an expert sales trainer. The second of those is our own CMO, Prasanna from Tevent, and he is the one that created and promoted this event today. So he's got lots of great things to talk about when it comes to marketing your virtual events. And then also we've got James Donaldson, who is the head of partnerships at Engage Tech, which is a large agency that does sales and marketing agency work for some of the biggest brands in the world. So he's got great experience using this type of event to generate leads. And as I've already said, my name's Tom Parker. I'm the CGO here at Tevent, and I'm going to be your host for today. I've been working in this space of virtual events and webinars for the last few years. Also running my own agency in the past as well. So I've got some experience that I'm going to chip into that discussion at the end as well. The speakers will be joining me on the stage in about 15 or 20 minutes, so I'll reintroduce them then. Okay, so if you want to win a prize today, you'll need to come across to the Tevent platform. If you're watching this on socials, you can take your mobile phone, and scan the QR code that's on the screen right now. And that will take you straight through to the Tevent event page. And then you can go onto the stage and you can watch me live on the Tevent page instead of watching it on the socials. When you come across, make sure you mute or close your socials, because otherwise you're going to hear me twice. The prizes that we're going to be giving away today are pretty big and worth thousands of dollars in total. So we're going to be giving away one prize of 1,000 tickets and 1-day event lengths software package for Tevent, which is worth hundreds of dollars per month. We're going to be giving away a second prize of 600 tickets and 3-hour event lengths, a third prize of 300 tickets and 2-hour event lengths. And then Justin from Sandler has also very kindly offered to sponsor somebody to go through the Sandler sales program in January as well. So maybe Justin can talk a little bit about that when he comes on stage later. But that in itself is a fantastic prize. So if you want to be running your own virtual events in the future, we are giving away lifetime access on our platform, and we're also giving away the sponsored seat to the Sandler sales program as well. All you need to do is be in the event in order to win some of these prizes, and then you'll also, if you want to win the top prizes, we'll also ask you to fill in a survey that will take 1 minute at the end of the event. And those prizes are going to be drawn in about 40 minutes time. Okay, so what we're going to learn today is how to set achievable goals for your virtual events and webinars, how to avoid some of the pitfalls that people often go through when they're running their first few virtual events, and how to kind of, dodge those pitfalls, make sure that you have a much more successful webinar. And then we're going to be talking about some of the best practices that turn a good webinar into a great webinar. And that's obviously what we're all here to learn at the moment, is how to become great webinar and virtual event presenters. Some of the topics that I'm going to talk about in relation to those goals. So why we think that webinars are still one of the most effective channels to convert leads into revenue, despite doom and gloom and people saying that virtual events are finished and everything's going to go back to in-person. Now that COVID is finished, we don't think that's the case. We think that a good combination of virtual and in-person is the right strategy. So I'm going to be talking a bit about that. We're going to talk about how to design content that helps your audience understand your proposition and helps move them through your sales funnel, through awareness, consideration, and into their purchasing decision. How to collect valuable data from your audience so that you can calculate whether your webinar was successful or not successful. And we call that term return on webinar investment. So we're going to show you which metrics to track and how to calculate those. And then we're also going to talk about how to design clear call to actions that will take an audience member from being interested in your product to actually wanting to go into a sales funnel with you and engage with you after the event has finished. So, are webinars still effective? Is the question. Well, you probably won't be surprised to hear that I think, and we think at Tevent, that they are still effective, of course. And there are a number of reasons why. We're not just saying that because we're a webinar platform. We're saying that because there's lots of statistics to back that up. And I'm just going to show you some of those over the next couple of slides here. So webinars are certainly still trusted by the industry being, B2B, technology, consulting. There's various different industries that really benefit from running virtual events. So 73%, according to the research, the desk research, and also some of the surveys that we've done ourselves, 73% of leading marketers and salespeople within B2B companies said that webinars are their best lead generation channel. That survey was taken at the end of last year, 2021. A part of another survey, another piece of research, we found that in terms of top of funnel, say like marketing activities, following on from SEO and SEM, which is obviously a huge player in that space and an important tactic and strategy to deploy, virtual events and webinars come a very close second and third behind that. So, marketers that are attracting leads at the top of the funnel still do think that virtual events and webinars are extremely important as part of their process. And also in the middle of the funnel for revenue and sales leaders, webinars and live events are also extremely important there. 59% of those surveyed said that webinars are an important channel for their middle of funnel activities as well. So, pretty much half or more than half of all of the B2B people that were surveyed in these various different reports and in our own research still think that virtual events are a really important part of generating business and generating revenue for their company. It also helps you not just to generate revenue, but also to generate good quality leads. And what we found at the start of COVID was that people were looking to achieve a high quantity of leads, and now people are looking to achieve a better quality of leads. Quality can obviously be measured in multiple different ways, but the research that we've done suggested that the 78% of those people surveyed said that actually webinars reduced the cost per lead over the full sales cycle. So all of that, money and effort and investment that you put into virtual events are actually going to bring the cost per lead down, not drive them up. 72% confirmed that the webinars have a really direct influence on the purchasing decisions within the pipeline as well. So, the ability to educate people and show them your product and drive them through the funnel is really, really important to 72% of those that were surveyed. And also 66% of businesses say that their sales teams prioritize leads that come from webinars versus leads that come from other sources, such as cold email or social media outreach, for example. And obviously, people that have engaged in a webinar, generally speaking, are much warmer than those that might have engaged in a cold email. So sales teams do prefer leads that come from webinars, and that's a good sign of quality. Why do I think they're so great as an individual, as a person operating in this space for a number of years? So I think that webinars and virtual events in general give you the ability to have that personal interaction with your audience, but to be able to do that at scale. So you're not just having a multitude of one-to-one conversations. I'm having a conversation with you right now, and I'm also having a conversation with all the other people that are watching this right now. And by using engagement tools, we can encourage the audience to converse with each other as well. So creating that kind of personalized approach in that community is really important. We can get loads of value across to our audience by using a webinar or a virtual event in this format. So we can impress our leads, we can show them our product, we can show them our knowledge and expertise, and that attracts people to buy. They are superior in achieving really good quality engagement. So like I said, it's a more impressive format than email. It grabs their attention more than social media ads. It's less annoying than adverts that you can display through, SEO like Google Ads or social ads as well. So it's a really good way of getting a quality engagement going with your audience. And also, virtual events can be used as a central pillar for a broader marketing strategy. And we're going to talk a little bit in a minute about how you can kind of revolve your entire content marketing strategy around a webinar or a series of virtual events. And that's a really great way to continuously re-engage people throughout the year. So how do you set goals and measure this return on webinar investment or return on virtual event investment? All of you on the call are going to be aware of the kind of funnel approach to looking at sales and marketing KPIs and metrics. This is the typical funnel that's been around for many years. So going from awareness at the top of the funnel through consideration, intent, and conversion. Marketing leaders are obviously interested in the awareness and the consideration piece. Sales leaders, revenue leaders are interested in the intent and conversion piece. So being able to set goals that are aligned to your funnel and the way that you measure your metrics within your own business is really important. So we say, don't waste time and money running virtual events or webinars without a purpose. Your purpose should be a very clearly aligned set of goals between your sales and marketing organizations. So if you ask yourself, why are we doing this? Then you're going to be able to align to those goals better. So if you want to increase the number of followers on your socials or the amount of website traffic that you're getting, then that's an awareness metric. And that is something that webinars and virtual events can help to improve. If you're looking at increasing the number of registrations and attendees, or maybe growing your mailing list, that's a consideration point for marketers. Again, something that webinars and virtual events are very good at driving. If you're looking at increasing your lead conversion rates or collecting buying intent data from your existing leads, that's an intent question for team members. And again, that's something that webinars can help with. And then finally, getting a deal over or getting it closer to getting over the line, creating a genuine opportunity from your leads is another thing that virtual events can help to drive as well. And if you make sure that you are aligned from top to bottom of that funnel, and a webinar can, as I said, can help you achieve multiple goals, You can choose goals from the top of your funnel and the bottom. And if you're aligned between both teams, then you're much more likely to close deals when you're working together. And the research that we've done suggests that 67%, you're 67% more likely to close deals if you're aligned between the top and bottom of the funnel, and marketing and sales both understand why you're doing this process in the first place. The way that I particularly like to look at the funnel is then to break it down a little bit further and think about the actionable and influenceable steps that you take when you're running a virtual event. So at the very top of the funnel, you're sending invites or you're driving traffic towards your event registration page. Then you're getting ticket sales or registrations. People are signing up to attend your event. Then people actually turn up to your event. Then they will engage with you during the event, and we use surveys very effectively to do that, which I'm going to talk about in a second. Then we look to book meetings with people after the event so that we can continue that sales engagement with them afterwards. And then obviously it goes into the sales funnel post-event for sending a proposal and then closing a deal. So think very clearly about what you can actually influence as part of that process. And all of those things on the right-hand side can be influenced up until closing the deal right at the end of the sales process. All of those segments above that can be influenced by deploying a good set of KPIs, being clear about your goals, and running a great webinar. Think about your funnel, think about the goals that you want to set, and then work specifically towards those goals, but make sure you can actually influence them. Don't just say, I want to increase my revenue, because that's not a goal that you can directly influence by adjusting your registration page, for example, or improving your email communications around the webinar, or distributing content to interested parties after your webinar, for example. And don't try to measure everything. If you try to measure everything, you'll probably end up measuring nothing. So what do we consider return on webinar investment as? Well, in my opinion, it shouldn't just be the amount of revenue generated divided by the cost, the financial cost of the webinar. But what you should also be looking at is all of these metrics on the right hand, so these 4 metrics and more on the right hand side of the screen here. So you might be looking at the revenue, the pipeline revenue, the weighted forecasted pipeline revenue that you generated, looking at the number of sales calls that you've booked, number of new attendees that have attended and engaged with your event, the number of people that you've added to your mailing list. So this is going, up through to the top of the funnel. So all of these metrics are totally valid, and there is not really any correct answer to which ones of these you should be particularly measuring. It's whatever's most important to you in your business and what you're trying to achieve with these events. Set the goal based on what you particularly are trying to achieve. There's no correct answer to this. And here is a slide with a pretty good, I would say this is a good benchmark. These are good results that I've collected through my consulting career over the last couple of years, and also some of the customers that we have at Tevent. We've kind of aggregated all of the various different statistics from our customers and customers from my previous business as well. And these are some of the statistics that we consider to be good. So if you're going to send about 2,000 invites, or you're going to drive 2,200 people to your event registration page, then you might expect to convert 20% of those into registrations and 40% of those into actual attendees that turn up on the day. 60% of those might fill in your survey or engage with the polls or whatever it is that you're, the type of engagement that you're using live on the webinar itself. And then you can see the statistics as they fall through to the bottom here. And I've worked with clients in the past that have, from a single webinar with completely cold leads, have managed to close multiple deals worth over £100,000 or $100,000 worth of pipeline value. So it is very much possible to pull leads down through this funnel and collect their buying intent, and then make them make that positive buying decision. I'm going to distribute this afterwards, and you can use this to benchmark against your own KPIs for when you run your own events in the future. So how do we create valuable content? Well, first thing to do is think like your audience. If you can get into your audience's mindset by interviewing them, surveying them, researching about what they are looking to see in the content that you're delivering, then you're much more likely to deliver a great piece of content to them on the day. Asking questions about their problems and then addressing those problems, and also setting expectations. Like, the expectation that we set today is that you guys are going to learn about some of these pieces. Hopefully you agree that actually we're over delivering on that today, and that you're actually learning more than you might have expected to learn. And it's always good to under promise and over deliver when it comes to this type of content delivery. And also for the actual promotion, the marketing piece, Prasanna can talk a little bit more about this later. Some teaser content that goes out to your audience so they know what to expect, but also delivering the content, the promotional and the follow-on content after the event in the way that your audience likes to digest it, whether that's in video format, ebooks, written podcasts, whatever it is. If you can redesign, or sort of manipulate the content that you build throughout the course of building your live event content, and then deliver that in the right way to your audience, then that's going to hit them the best, and they're much more likely to attend and engage with your event if you can do that successfully. During the webinar itself, keep it short, keep it fairly simple, focus on the key takeaways, make sure that the audience feels heard. So we're running polls today. Hopefully those are being activated in the background. I haven't been keeping an eye on it because it's over on this screen, but the polls are being activated in the background. So we're trying to do that today by incentivizing you guys to get involved in that. I can see they just popped up here. So yeah, please do fill in the polls, making your audience feel heard and giving them an opportunity to engage with the polls and with the question and answer session is really important to making them feel a part of your community. And also, delivering something that looks and feels good as well, so that people aren't doing their emails in the background or playing on their phone. Hopefully this is engaging you so far and you're staying interested. So 92% of all of the attendees that were surveyed in this report that we're referencing here said that they do want to have a Q&A session as part of a webinar. So vast majority of people want to see Q&As attached to the end of a piece of content like this, which is what we're doing today. And also 67% of people say that the most important thing about the whole content delivery is the passion of the host or the presenter. And so you have to, really want to be there, be in the room, deliver the content, be a subject matter expert, and really deliver a great piece of content. And then after the webinar's finished, make sure that you utilize all the content, like I said. So take the recording, for example, or take all the notes that you made during your preparation, reduce those down and condense it into bite-sized chunks, and then continuously reuse and recycle that content on socials and email newsletters and things like that. So that people say, you're not putting all this effort in just for one piece of content. You can probably create half a dozen or maybe even a dozen pieces of content out of a single webinar delivery. Continue to do that long term as well. So run a second, a third, a fourth event and continue to engage your audience. And then also use the data that you're collecting through the registration process or through the polling and the surveying that you do to make sure that you follow up with those people in a timely fashion as well. Webinars alone don't necessarily guarantee success. It's important that you integrate it into a broader content marketing strategy. There's some stats on the screen here, but the one that particularly interests me is that 72% of marketers say that the content marketing, when it's inclusive of a virtual event, really helps to educate the audience. And when you're trying to sell to people or trying to attract their consideration at the top of the funnel or middle of the funnel, it's all about education and them feeling like they understand who you are and what your product is as well. So on its own doesn't necessarily work in isolation, but when you wrap it around with a broader content strategy, then you're going to be able to achieve that education, that growth of loyalty, and also then obviously generating net new leads as well off the back of that. So the final piece, how do you then convert the leads once you've done a great job of delivering your content? How do you then convert them? So collecting intent data is the gold mine that you're really looking to mine here. Um, the key here is that intent data is much more important than engagement data. So what we do, and you'll see this at the end of this session, is we survey our audience. We understand whether they are interested in the content that's been delivered and whether they think that we can help them solve the problem. And if you guys do that as well, then you're always going to get a much better understanding of the qualification criteria of your audience and whether they're worth following up with or not, because you don't want to be wasting your time following up with leads that are not going to convert effectively. So how do you collect that type of data from such a big audience potentially? You might be trying to do that for 50 or 100 people at the same time. We use a piece of software called Atomly, which we will show you in a second, to design that survey. And actually the questions are pre-designed to some extent. So they've already been worked on and improved over the years to be delivered in a format that works the best based on Atomly's experience. And then doing it live during the webinar rather than waiting until after the webinar is really important as well. So capturing their intent while they're actually on the webinar rather than sending them an email 3 days later is much more likely, 5 times more likely to get a positive response. And also incentivizing, like we're doing today with giveaways or donations to charity, or limiting supply of access to certain things is a good way of getting people to fill in those surveys and engage. And then once you've got that information, then you need to activate the audience afterwards. So continue to offer value long term. Like I said, multiple webinars or additional consultation calls, additional freebies. There's all sorts of different ways that you can incentivize with various different types of call to action. Make those things irresistible to them so that they really want to go and make use of them. And always, like I keep saying, just go above and beyond, under promise, over deliver, and continue to deliver more than one webinar. Build a community, serialize your content, which we're going to be talking about in our own series of webinars next year. The importance of doing this regularly and not just doing it as a one-off, and that's going to help you be successful in this sphere. Okay, so we're going to be moving on to the Q&A. I've already gone over by 5 minutes, so I haven't followed my own advice. That usually happens. We're going to move on to the Q&A in just a second. Before that, just a reminder of the giveaway. So just by being here right now in the room on Tevent, you're already qualified for the bronze and silver prize. If you want to qualify for the gold prizes, there are 2 separate prizes in that gold category. Then you will need to fill in the survey. So how do you fill in the survey? Well, you can scan the QR code on the screen, or you can follow the link that should be put into chat and pinned. I'm saying this to remind my colleagues to do this. Can you, Niall, if you get a chance, can you pin the link and then put it in the chat, please? So if you follow, there we go. So if you follow that survey link, it takes about a minute or so. Either through the QR code or the link. I think you'll also receive an email as well if you registered with an email address for today's session. By doing that, you will qualify for the gold prize pool. And also every person that fills in the survey today, Tevent is going to make a donation on your behalf to charity. So we support a charity called Magic Breakfast. So every single person that fills in the survey today, we're going to donate a breakfast to a child that can't afford, effectively, their family can't afford to provide them with breakfast before they go to school. So when they go to school, they are given a free breakfast, and we are going to be funding those breakfasts today. So every person that fills in that survey, we will give 1 additional breakfast to a child that's going to school hungry this Christmas. Okay, let's go to the Q&A. In the background of that, I'm also just going to run the survey thermometer. So this is going to show us how many people are actually filling in that survey. So I'm going to keep that up on the screen in the background. And yeah, please do fill it in. you'll see the thermometer will start to fill as people fill in the survey and submit that. And I'm going to move across to the Q&A. So if the other guys would like to jump back onto the stage, please. Prasanna, Justin, and James. Hello, I can see them filtering in. Hi, guys.
Hi, how you doing?
Hello.
Good. Welcome. Thank you for joining and being part of the panel today. Hopefully that first bit was interesting to you guys as well.
Yeah,
cool, good. So audience, remember, please ask questions. So if you're into event, you can ask questions on the right hand side panel. To start with, I'm just going to ask the guys a couple of questions, and then as soon as we get some interesting questions coming through from the audience, we will start to ask those instead. So here's the first question, guys. It would be great to understand why each of you guys think that webinars or other formats of virtual event are still a great way to convert B2B leads into revenue in 2022 and going into 2023 next year.
Just want to jump in?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, Tom, it's really interesting. I think most organizations today feel that because of how educated a buyer is in the process, they think because of all their access to all the data and all the information that they've got out there in their decision-making world, making decisions has got easier. Well, actually, it's got increasingly more difficult because of the amount of information that's out there. So the value, I think, that is really placed in producing webinars that are kind of what we would call edu-sell is creating an opportunity for somebody to get a better understanding of what it is that you're actually solving for in the world in which you engage.
Absolutely agree. And yeah, I think for me, like I say, I think being able to do that at scale, educating people at scale, but then also being able through Q&As and things like that to have those sort of micro one-to-one conversations within that setting, because often people have the same question as the person next to them, quote unquote, right, in the virtual room. So by answering one person's question, you're actually answering multiple people's questions at the same time, and therefore educating more than one person at a time. James?
Yeah, I agree with your points there, Justin. And I was also, a colleague of mine was pointing out that the more data and more things that are out there, buyers typically, they want to be able to get all the information and understand things themselves and deal less maybe with a salesperson directly, like they may have had to do sort of 2 years ago. So providing a webinar or virtual events like this where you can position yourself as leaders, thought leaders, provide like real content and real value, that's going to be part of that content that buyers consume, and you want to be doing that ahead of your competition. So it's definitely like a great avenue that I think everyone needs to be getting right.
Yeah, given that choice, whether you want to interact with a human or not, you can watch the webinar and not ask a question if you don't want to, right? Or you could ask lots of questions and also have that engagement. So it's
a really interesting point, James, because I think there is a sort of an ambition in order to sort of engage with a prospective vendor or partner or supplier. There's an expectation that actually to remove friction from the buying process or the engagement process is to reduce human interaction. But the problem actually with that is that you end up solving to the wrong problem, and buyers will end up buying the wrong thing. But you still need to go through the exercise of demonstrating. I mean, if you go back to the old sort of sales methodology of you've got to create awareness, you've got to create interest, you've got to get someone to make a decision, and then you've got them to act. Clearly, I mean, that's no different than it was in 1896 when it was first defined, right? So you still got to create that awareness and that interest, and webinars is a great way to create that interaction without it getting too personal too quickly.
Absolutely. Prasanna, I know that we're biased, obviously, but I always love to get your 2 cents on these topics.
Yeah, of course. I'm like speaking to Justin, James, and yourself, I think I'm already learning so much more from a sales point of view than I would have thought about. And yeah, it's great to see that. But from a marketing point of view, even in 2022, the main marketing channels we still rely on are email, social media. Of course, there are new formats. There's reels, there's AI marketing. There's so many new things happening. But webinars, I think they still hold that niche where you can have that personal time with your audience, and like you guys said, without getting too personal too quickly. And yeah, I think more than the quantity of the people that you reach with webinars, the quality is what matters, and that still holds true. So the other perspective, I think, is data privacy has become more and more important in the last few years, what with GDPR and some good regulations coming in. So I think webinars are a very great way of collecting first-hand intent data in a very legitimate way. That can't be replaced all that easily. And of course, we have other ways to do that, but I think webinars are a great channel to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that point around data privacy and people opting in to providing their contact details so that we can then market to them. For me, webinars are a very soft way of marketing to people, because rather than emailing someone and saying, hey, do you want to jump on a sales call? To James and Justin's point, not everyone is comfortable as a first or second touch point in a sales process, jumping straight into a direct interaction with a salesperson. But inviting people to come along and listen and choose whether they want to go further or not is a much softer approach. And most people seem to like that. There's a much higher reply rate or click-through rate when you're asking someone to register for an event than if you're asking them to book a call with one of your sales team, for example. On that topic, I'd be interested to understand, because there's obviously a mix of sort of marketing and sales experience here, which of the funnel that I showed with the various different KPIs that you could track and that you might want to influence, the different metrics that you might be looking to achieve, which of those would you be particularly interested in tracking and influencing and optimizing within your roles, or just impacts for your clients? What's most important to your clients? Is it top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel? What are they really looking to achieve at the moment?
Well, it's an interesting situational question, because obviously every organization is different. But I think certainly from my perspective, first and foremost, when we run interactive virtual events, the ability to qualify somebody at that moment is impossible, right? So what I need to do is to find out actually what it is that I'm potentially helping to solve for. Does that actually create an interest? Does it create a level of engagement that they themselves want to explore further about whether or not I can enable providing them with some help? And so our purpose, the key metric that we place on these, is simply to around further consideration. Because I can't possibly get to understand the nature of the businesses or the challenges, issues that they're having, because I may not be able to help them. So I'm here to understand whether in fact there's a level of consideration at their end that they want to explore further. So that's going to be my metric.
Sure. So very, very much like middle of funnel.
Absolutely.
Thinking about how do we pull someone down through to starting to think about making their decision.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. James, how have you deployed these types of virtual event in order to drive these?
I kind of agree with a lot of Justin's points there, and I think for us, because we're very much, or for the most part anyway, on that sales development side of the equation, is that it sits in that top of funnel. But what we're often measuring and interested in is, yes, driving attendees, and people to register for those events. But I think to Justin's point, that's only valuable if it moves people into the middle of the funnel, and it's about that intent. It's about that openness to further conversation. So the metrics that we're interested in is actually, if we can successfully survey people during those webinars, how successfully and how what's the better conversion, or is there an ability for the SDR team to follow up and actually get a good level of engagement and find out that people were going to those webinars because there was something genuinely interesting there and something that genuinely sparked their interest, rather than maybe a webinar where there were lots of attendees, but on following up and measuring the interest further, it was just a sort of it was a nice to have, or it was a nice to know. So we're trying to measure what's going in at the top and then judging, and we're going to keep trying to tweak that based on what we're measuring as the, I guess, conversion out afterwards. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that some of the stats that I presented 15 minutes ago show that SDRs, business development reps, prefer to work with warm leads that come from a virtual event as opposed to a relatively cold lead that replies to a first touch cold email, for example. When we posted the promotion for this webinar on LinkedIn, someone in one of my colleagues' networks said that when they were running virtual events very heavily throughout COVID, they were finding that actually their conversion rate to booking sales calls was 40% higher from the SDRs that were focused on following up with leads that were coming from their virtual events versus the SDRs that were focused on the more sort of traditional routes like email, social media, ads, etc. So that really, it really does prove that point that you're both making there, that it's a way of understanding better the intentions of the audience.
And certainly in my world, I would say that my conversion from those engagements through the virtual sessions that we hold is probably closer 70 or 80%, because they get a real feel about what it is that we do and how we do it. And because of the nature of what we do, obviously it is that personal interaction that becomes so crucial, but then it leads on to that kind of CTA, which is if they're really engaged, they see the value of what we're doing, then actually booking a follow-up, non-obligatory, no committal meeting is quite easy to do. But then you can then you can go into your qualification at that stage.
Yeah, especially if you feel like you already know the host company a bit better because they've been engaged, like speaking with you for an hour or over multiple sessions, and you feel much more comfortable. Prasanna, I know that you're obviously looking at it again from more of a marketing perspective. Which KPI do you think is most important or influenceable for us within Tevent? Which one are you particularly interested in when you look at the stats afterwards?
Because if I'm very biased, I would always say top of the funnel. How many people have we managed to get in here? How are they engaging? Is it a success in terms of the ROI to the marketing activities that we've done before? Trying to get people in here and so on. But Tevent being a young company, in the last couple of years, we've had to build the funnel out altogether. There was no funnel when we actually started off. So we've had to focus on the top of the funnel, the middle of the funnel, and now thankfully to the bottom of the funnel as well. And completely agree with what James said. There's so much feedback going on within these segments that you need to learn from the bottom of the funnel, learn what the client is saying, feed it back to the top of the funnel, improve that again, and that cycle keeps continuing, of course, through the process. So while I am tempted to say top of the funnel metrics are probably more important for me, I think that would be a very biased opinion.
Sure. And also, like you say, what people should be focusing on, especially if they adopt a long-term approach to this, is the change in the conversion metrics over time. It's a positive movement in conversion rates is much more important than absolute numbers. A lot of people get stuck on, oh, well, last time we had 100 registrations, so next time we need 150 registrations. But actually, if your registration to attendance rate is improving every month or every quarter that you run a webinar, then you're doing something right, because it doesn't really matter how many people you get in front of. If more and more of them are interested in attending, if you can fix those conversion rates and optimize them, then when you pour more money into the top of the funnel to attract more people, you know that more of them are going to get pulled through to actually attending, actually engaging with the webinar content as well. So fixing those conversion rates first before thinking about the absolute numbers that you're achieving. And it is a snowball effect. It takes time to build huge audiences that continuously come back. Okay, let me just check the questions. There are there's quite a few actually. Sorry, I've been neglecting this. Let's answer a few of these now. Okay, what do you guys think about engaging the audience by bringing them up onto the stage? Justin, I know that the type of events that you run are more of a sort of collaborative round table type event. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you do that?
Yeah.
Actually, James, I know you do teardowns as well, so you could both talk about that a little bit, maybe.
I mean, I think principally because this is about helping them discover a better understanding about either the topic that we're bringing as experts in our field, or they're trying to solve a problem themselves. What I particularly love is that opportunity of creating that interaction and that opportunity for some interrogation, quote unquote, that they are going to have of me about what it is that I've just been sharing. Because equally, as they're going through their own assessment as to whether or not this is of value to them, it's an opportunity for them to quickly disqualify me out, right? Before we progress any further, which I think is brilliant, because we want to get to knows quicker, right? So I love that interaction, but at the same time, based on the nature of the questioning that we can have in that moment, I can then determine, back to what we were saying about whether in fact there is value in progressing a conversation post the seminar or webinar.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a two-way street. Both parties are looking to
We have a rule: cameras
right.
on, mics on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, James, I know that you guys have a sort of interactive approach that you take with your audience as well in one of your formats. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, we it's not quite as like immediate in engagement as Justin's, but we, for a period of time, did LinkedIn Lives where we would play back our team's cold calls, but also partners' cold calls, or anyone in our audience who wanted to put themselves forward. We would do a LinkedIn Live and listen back to the call so that anyone viewing could hear it, and we'd break it down and give feedback. And you know, it was just for us a really good way to demonstrate that we are practicing what we preach. We do this day in, day out. We are willing to put our call out there and let anyone listen to it, and demonstrate that, you know, we're not perfect. Everyone still makes mistakes. Like, no matter how long you've been an SDR or as, you know, cold calling or outbound sales, but we would invite people to, you know, that anyone could get in touch with me and send me, say, I'd love to put my call forward on next week's. And so obviously we had to bleep out the GDPR stuff to make sure we weren't crossing any lines. So I had to have the calls ahead of time. So it wasn't immediately like that same session, but anyone was welcome to provide. And it was just good to create a little bit of a community, I guess, around what we do. And going back to, I think, some of like the earlier comments around thought leadership and stuff like that, you can really demonstrate that you're practicing what you preach. It's quite powerful. And yeah, just having something simple like that, because every salesperson is calling people at some point or other, and every salesperson should be looking for feedback, and it's a good place to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think any innovation that you can introduce into your format I can think of a few examples of clients that I've worked with in the past. There's a client that I worked with in the past where right in the middle of COVID, they used to run wine and cheese tasting face-to-face sessions, and obviously couldn't do that during COVID. So they would send a box of wine and cheese to about 25, 30 people that would be attending this virtual roundtable event. And then they would deliver some content and they would say, okay, take the first bottle of wine and the first cheese out of the box. Let's taste it together. They'd have like a sommelier on the webinar as well. And so anything that you can do to introduce a bit of innovation into the format and into the way that you're delivering it, you know, like what we're doing today with the charity thermometer, it grabs people's attention, makes them engage. So yeah, great question, Raphael. I think that's you know, anything that you can do to engage your audience directly and get them actively involved is good, and helps to generate trust and build relationships. Okay, so Charles asked the question: is gamification useful immediately after each webinar? Well, I'm assuming that what that means is probably you know, introducing, you know, something like gaining points for each webinar that you attend, and then you can turn those in for something later on. Something like that. Charles, if you want to clarify in the chat what exactly you mean by that. But I don't know, guys, if any of you had any experience with using sort of gamification techniques as part of maybe not just virtual events, but your sales processes in the past.
Not directly. I've used Atomly before. And I'm not going to put that in the same box as gamification, but it definitely, you know, I think people like to have something to interact with, right? On some level, whether it's a survey, whether it's a poll of some sort, if that's what Charles is thinking about, I think that obviously creates intrigue so that it's not just a you know, a single point of delivery, because obviously sometimes in webinars when there isn't that opportunity, and that's why certainly, you know, platforms today giving the opportunity for chat is fantastic. So I think as long as you've got that dynamic where you can have that interaction, whether it's a gamification platform, whether it's a chat, whether it's a poll, I think those add all to the dimension of getting the audience engaged and staying engaged.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, if you guys don't have anything else to say on that one, I'll move on. There's another question here. What are the best practices for engaging with the audience during a webinar? Obviously, we've just spoken there about some of the various different techniques, so polls, chat. We, particularly at Event, like to encourage community building before, during, and after the event. So you'll notice in the platform here, you can connect with other people that are in this event and you can chat to them one-to-one. Also, after this event is contained within what we call a space, which is a community management hub. So if you, after the event finishes, if you go back one step in the platform, you will land in that space and you can join that space, and we will continue to engage with our audience there over the next couple of weeks. We'll post the recording there, we'll post some additional research that we've done, so you can continue to engage with each other and with us through that. Any other tips that anyone's got about best way to engage with the audience live?
One of the things that I've done I think I can't remember if I started the initial engagement or if the panelist did, but it was a webinar that was about like sales leadership just at the start of the pandemic, when I had a team of maybe 11 or 12 like SDRs, and I'd sat next to them and I sat next to all my SDR teams for like the previous 2 years, and then like overnight we were remote. I was like, right, how am I going to teach brand new SDRs, no sales experience, become SDRs? And I was watching a webinar, and often in most webinars you can chat and you can reply to people directly in like a private chat, like you just mentioned, Tom. So if you're quick enough and you're able to do it, multitask without distracting yourself from engaging in the panel you're meant to be a part of, if things catch your eye in the chat, just message those people directly. Just say, look, here's my number, happy to chat to you for 5 minutes afterwards. you're already starting to move people into that next stage of the funnel, and it's a very personal and appropriate thing. If someone on the right hand side here, I'm not great at multitasking, but if someone here on the right hand side asked a question which I was like, I could probably definitely answer that, but we just didn't get around to it, I would just try and message them directly. And if you're trying to do that, you'll get better with it with practice. And it's this really nice personal way just to move things down the funnel. So try and always just keep an eye on the chat and message people directly. It's not intrusive. It's not invasive. People come to watch and they've asked a question. You're actually being really helpful. So when I think I asked the question of a panelist, they did that to me, and it just always stayed in my mind because I called him and he spoke to me for like an hour and a half in the end, and all he was doing in that scenario was giving, at the time, like a younger SDR manager some advice about how to deal with his team. And this guy was like a VP of sales. I was like, surely you've got loads of things you need to be getting on with. But it was a really nice personal touch.
Yeah, to give back, right? That's why you guys are here right now on the panel. People love to share their expertise, and I think going beyond, if you're planning to run virtual events and you're thinking, right, for that hour, I'm going to be helpful and I'm going to deliver this content for 1 hour, but then I'm never going to bother engaging with these people again, other than if it follows onto a sales conversation, then you're probably taking the wrong approach. The way to move people down through the funnel and engage in a softer sales approach using these methods is more about the holistic engagement that you have with them, not just the very specific sales follow-on that you're going to have. And so continuing to share content and helping people, messaging them afterwards, etc., is useful. Prasanna, have you got anything to add on that? I'm just going to ask one more question after, and then we'll move on to the prize draw.
No, nothing to add. I think we've showcased some different ways of engaging with the audience here. But James, I think we're going to steal that last idea of yours. I'm pretty sure we're not going to get to all the questions here, so that's probably what we're going to do.
Absolutely. And by the way, everyone in the audience, if you notice, if you hover over even as the speakers here, if you click on our names, you'll notice it's actually a hyperlink. You can send us a direct message. So if you do want to ask any particular questions of myself, Prasanna, James, or Justin, please do that, and we can get back to you afterwards. There you go. I just received a contact request as I was saying that. Perfect. It works. Okay, I'm going to ask one more question. There's a couple of really long ones. I'm going to ask a short one. So can Tevent be used to run the whole funnel that you presented? That's from John. I think the answer is yes. And to be honest, if we're going to be open and honest about this, most webinar platforms that we compete with are able to run elements of the funnel. It's much more about your choice of format and of format of delivery. How you actually go about doing it. Roundtable, collaborative roundtable events like what Justin does very successfully is much better for that, like middle to bottom of funnel piece. Mass broadcasted webinars to hundreds of people to raise awareness is much better for the top of funnel piece. So it's about selecting the right format of event and the right type of content for each of those segments, and then threading it all together to build a more comprehensive strategy. Guys, have you got any particular tips on how to be particularly effective at one area of that funnel?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it probably depends a little bit on the cost, value, and like what your product does or your service does. Obviously, if it's quite low cost, quite low value, B2C, I've seen webinars be quite effective because every slide or whatever you can have a code, you can have something that at any point someone could just scan and buy like that. I think everyone could probably guess that, but that doesn't mean to say that for B2B it doesn't work. I've seen one of my partners, Hypersocial, do it quite effectively. They're like a LinkedIn automation organization, and they will have the codes and things on each slide, and through that they slowly, people will scan it and you get a discount if you do it then and there, and that then puts puts people through that buying process. So it can be quite effective. I imagine if you're selling a cybersecurity package, it's probably going to be a lot harder to use a webinar for that lower end of the funnel. But yeah, it does work. It's just thing you've got to be clever and what you offer and how you position it during the webinar. But I think subtlety, just having it there in the corner of each slide, I don't think it's a bad thing.
Absolutely. Any other inputs on that one before we move on to the prize draw? No. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to invite my colleague Niall just to come up on the stage. He's been preparing the prize draw. So what we're going to do for this, everyone that has attended the session today, their names have been taken from the platform and inserted into a random name selection Wheel of Fortune style thing. You'll see it on the screen in a second and it will all become crystal clear as to what I mean by that. Hopefully, Niall, can you join the stage and share your screen, please? There he is.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello.
Yes, shared.
Okay, perfect.
And can you see the wonderful wheel of names?
Yes, I can. Cool. Looks like we've got at least 20 or 25 names there. So yeah, go ahead and spin it, and then this will be the first person that wins the bronze prize.
Awesome. Mamta.
Perfect. Thank you. So Mamta, if you can make sure that you just fill out your profile in the top right corner of the platform, just fill out your profile, include your email address, and then we'll be able to contact you afterwards. And then Niall, if you want to just run that again, this will be for the silver prize. And that's Rosie. Congratulations, Rosie. So you've won the silver prize. Again, if you can make sure that you fill out your profile. I think there's one or two people that said they weren't on the wheel. We're going to include you in the gold prize. So don't worry, you've still got 2 more chances to win. A couple of people there that weren't in the wheel. Sorry, apologies for that. We're going to roll you into the other prize and we're going to draw those after the session today. So everybody that filled in the survey is going to get rolled into the gold giveaway, which is 2 separate prizes. We're going to announce that by email afterwards. All that remains to be said really is thank you to everyone. If you didn't win a prize, we are still on AppSumo for 24 hours, literally 24 hours until 6 p.m. UK time tomorrow. So if you didn't win today, or you haven't engaged in one of these in the past and won a prize in the past, you can go and purchase a lifetime deal on AppSumo, which gets you a massive discount on our platform. So thank you for attending. Thank you also to Justin, James and Prasanna for joining me on the panel today. Thanks for your answers to all the questions.
Thanks for having us.
Cheers.
Thank you. Look forward to having you back at some point in the future as well. Yeah, thank you everyone. We'll be running more of these next year, so keep an eye out for it, and please do stay engaged with us, and we'll be following up with you by email after the event. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thanks all.
Thank you.